This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
I'm going to segue here into the Wheel of Time TV show by saying, one of my coworkers said, his wife got into it and just loved it. The TV show really seems to be a success with people who have never read the books and who are willing to give it a shot. And it's interesting coming at it from that perspective and really trying to rewatch the show like I've never read the books. Mm-hmm. And I do think they're doing a better job than I give them credit for.
Yeah, I definitely am feeling that. The rewatch allows me to sit back a little bit because now I know what they are and aren't going to adapt and how they are and aren't going to adapt it. And I can step back from that and just look at it objectively as like a piece of televised entertainment. And yeah, we're burdened with the knowledge of the books. Like, however much we do or don't agree, we're still cursed with the knowledge that there is a thing to agree about.
Right.
The blissful ignorance of people who are just watching it for its own sake is like, it's a mindset to aspire to that I will never get to because I just can't possibly. But it's nice to see that it's such a roaring success amongst that group.
It really does. It seems to be people who are willing to enjoy fantasy and haven't invested in the books. Really do love it. Which honestly is kind of what I want, because then maybe they'll go get the books and read them. Mm-hmm. And at the very least, it's something I can say like, hey, if you want to know what I do with this podcast, go watch the show.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, there's been multiple instances where I mention that I do the podcast and it sparks people to be like, oh yeah, I read those books. Isn't there a show? Now there's a show I can point to and say not just it's getting made, but like, yeah, and it's great, especially if you don't particularly remember the books, but you remember that you liked the books and you just vaguely want to get back into it, but you don't have the time to read it. Like, just go enjoy the show. Like, it's fine. Like, there is an alternative that isn't just listening to the books, you know? Like, that's the only alternative we've had before is, well, you can listen to them on an audiobook instead. Now it's like, yeah, if you have vague 20-year-old memories of kind of enjoying the first 4 books, like, yeah, give the show a spin. You'll probably like it. I've been able to spark multiple people like that.
Yeah. And, one of the reasons I bring it up is because this is one of those episodes. If last episode was like almost to the book, as close as we've seen anything, this one just diverges completely, right? Because this is all about Moraine's story that has nothing to do with what's happening in the books. And Rand and Lanfear, which didn't happen in the books, not in the way they're portraying it at all. And Matt and Min, which also didn't happen in the books, right? So, and I didn't feel like they used a lot of scenes or a lot of lines from the books in this one.
Yeah, this one definitely was less exciting and has a lot more new material. I enjoyed it really hilariously. I enjoyed it because I felt like it spent a lot of time on relationship building, which on my first pass through the episode, I was like, there was so much lack of that.
Right.
And so far, 4 episodes in, I'm like, I feel like I haven't been vindicated on that criticism yet. Like Elaine and Egwene especially, I was like, fuck, they are showing us the two of them hanging out and getting closer. I want more of it, but it's not like it's not getting shown. So like, I've got 4 more episodes to get vindicated.
Yeah, I would say it's more like getting mentioned than getting shown, right? Like, it's like, oh yeah, they've been hanging out. And it's like, okay, well, we can buy that. We know that time has gone by. We know that they've been hanging out. We know they've been doing stuff together. But I guess the 2 things that I don't feel the show does particularly well is it doesn't show the passage of time particularly well, and it doesn't show spaces in context particularly well. Most of the spaces I see look like set pieces. I don't believe there's a world around them. I believe that it is very much this one thing plopped down in the middle of a desert, or this one thing plopped down on the shore, or this one thing, like it's very clearly a set built in the middle of the wilderness. And I think they could use more CGI to fill in the rest of the world. And I feel like they need to do a better, that's like a good place to put some CGI budget.
Yeah, I felt that from season 1. I was hoping it would be lessened in season 2. It's one of the few things I feel like didn't improve between the seasons. So many things improved. That improved the least. Yeah, the passage of time and space, just really the sense of time and space is something that I feel like that the TV format is just rapidly trashing in the name of how the form is quote unquote supposed to work. You know, that's definitely one of the things I see as being a flaw of TV rather than the show specifically, but it is grating nonetheless, for sure.
And so let's actually get into this episode.
Yes.
The Daughter of the Night, the Lanfear episode, which opens with, of course, her being freed by Ishamael. Now, this would be a flashback, right? Because she's been out for some time.
Right. I'm assuming he did this like more or less after everyone left the Eye of the World. This was his first mission.
Right. We're flashing back to the end of season 1.
Yeah. And these columns here, I think, are actually old buildings. There's like carvings in them or something. The way this shot looks up, I think...
Like skyscrapers.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that where they take the old buildings and turn them into these like rocky column outposts. And the way the seal's at the bottom of a structure, just like his was.
Yeah.
And then he's using green channeling, so he's channeling Earth.
And I think he's reciting the poem.
In the old tongue?
Yeah. Because it starts out with Lanfear, and every time we hear someone reading the poem, it starts out with the word Lanfear. So I'm assuming he's reciting that as an invocation to Lanfear, because he's a dramatic bitch.
Love the way it lit up the seal, and then it exploded. Thought that was a really good effect. Very cool effects.
It felt like sci-fi and fantasy meeting in a really productive artistic way.
And I like that they've brought in some of that sci-fi second age of legends feeling, right?
Yeah. And then, he finishes with the chorus from the poem. So I think he was reciting the prophecy thing that got written on the dial.
Why is she covered in blood?
Dramatic effect.
Okay. Because he wasn't, right? When he was broken out. He came out just as himself.
Or when she was put away, that's how she was put away.
Right.
She was naked and covered in blood, and that was the moment she got frozen aside in.
I mean, for Lanfear, not unthinkable at all.
She could have been captured in battle. It could have been a mid-battle, like, fuck you, you know?
Yeah.
Lindsay Duncan. Okay, so we open with Anver being old as fuck, and then putting on her face and her hair so that way she looks younger.
And this is Moraine's sister, so it's sort of younger sister, so it's sort of smashing the agelessness effect in our faces, right? There's no agelessness, but Moraine is not aging in the same way her sister is.
Exactly. We're driving home how old her little sister is.
I also love the way that she really drives home the fact that they are sisters, the way she manipulates her in this episode.
Mm-hmm. And she's hanging out in this room full of paintings of memories. This room is sad.
Well, sort of like flipping through your old photo books, right? Like old people love to do that when they,
No, but it's a room full of sadness. You can tell.
Well, her history is sad. Her backstory is sad.
Yeah, she sits down with her wine early in the morning to be with her memories. It's tough.
And then, this line, this is your older sister. And her just like deadpan, okay expression.
Because it's been 20 years, right? And then she's got the tea ready. She's all nervous. She like doesn't know what to expect because it's been since before their father died that she last saw her. And she literally hasn't changed at all.
Right.
And you can see Moraine's heart is breaking and she just keeps encasing it in ice. Very Robert Jordan.
Yeah, okay, so tell me what's going on with Moraine here, because I don't understand why she is treating her sister so poorly. Not a hug, not like... She's cold, yes, but she's never been one to avoid at least basic niceties when she comes into the house.
I think she's too fragile. She can't deal with emotions at all. And being near her sister is drawing up all these emotions and all this pain. And she's like, I just can't. That's all I could interpret from it, is it's not good manipulation. It's her being literally incapable.
Do you think it has just the fact that she was been stilled and is... kind of trying to, I don't know what to say, but the fact that she's just vulnerable from that and is being ultra tough on the outside to hide that vulnerability.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. She's in so much pain and trauma and doesn't have anyone to turn to. And she's just fragile. I mean, we saw her like crying in her bath before and she's trying to hold it the fuck together. But being around her sister, around the smells of home, like that's making it a lot harder for her to like maintain the facade of having it together.
All right. And then we go back to Rand after Celine's inn burned down.
Yeah, Rand is cleaning up after the inn burned down. And it's impressive, again, that the fire didn't spread But yeah, he's shoveling up the ashes. She says it's not your fault. Like, she doesn't know exactly how much his fault it was.
Because she was definitely banging him in the world of dreams, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. She was trying to get him to channel, as far as I'm concerned.
That she succeeded.
Uh-huh. Yeah, exactly. She's getting everything she wants. And so now we've got one of the few pieces of the adaptation with their storyline that is the same, Kinslayer's Dagger. They're gonna go have a moment in Kinslayer's Dagger. That much about their story is the same, because that's where she's like convincing him to use the portal stone and to go get the horn. Like, she does shit to him in Kinslayer's Dagger, but none of it is what actually happens here. But the location.
What happens in the books?
In the books, Kinslayer's Dagger is where they come back into the real world.
Okay. So that's where the portal stone is where they return.
Yeah, and then they camp out there for a few days and are ahead of Fane, and then Rand sneaks into the camp and gets the horn from Fane, and then they go into the Kyrian proper.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that they've just put a lot of the events that happen in the portal world just in the real world here, and are not having any of that.
No, I think that what's important about that is just that her encouraging him to channel and all of that, like, shit happened in Kinslayer's Dagger, and it's kind of what's happening here. Like, she's doing manipulating Celane's stuff in the dagger with his dagger.
You know what else we haven't seen? And I just realized this. We haven't seen any of the Shan-Chan animals. The Grolm, none of the flying beasts, none of the cat-like creatures with the bronze scales. I'm forgetting the names of everything because Torm, Grolm, Reddit,
Lopar are the scary ones.
Not even any elephants, right? Like, they really have done nothing with the Shan-Chan animals. They've almost completely written them out, and that's partially
No.
What?
They haven't written them out. They haven't shown up.
They have. Okay, yes,
you
right.
You can't say that they've written them out.
Okay.
There are other waves of the invasion yet to arrive.
Fair
that will
enough.
allow the Shan-Chan to level
Fair
up
enough.
if the menagerie arrives in wave 2.
Okay.
We haven't seen them yet. You were correct.
That we've skipped the portal stone, so we're not going to get any of the Grolm there, and Rand using his bow and arrow.
No. Yeah.
And then we've also, the advanced troops that we've seen so far haven't had any of the animals with them.
Yeah. Did you notice her inn is called the Crescent?
No, I didn't notice that. That's clever.
Yeah, they keep saying, oh, the Crescent burned down. The Crescent Inn burned down. The boy was staying at the Crescent. It's, Selene.
She's like, you'll have the whole place to yourself. And it's like, it's a burned down husk. There's nothing.
And then she grabs the handle and looks at him and is like, you really want to be alone? She's just so reeling him in like a fish on a hook. Oh my God. Tarvalin.
And I also love the switch from Selene flirting with Rand to erect Tarvalin.
Yeah.
With the two towers.
Sure. And tower.
Yeah, it's very much a phallic symbol on screen right here in this pause, right? Like, that is extremely phallic.
But aside from the Freudian implications, this is a really cool shot because it's giving us Tarvalin from above, not from that 3/4 view from the side like we got last season. This is looking down and seeing the layout of the streets and where there's gardens and how the tower is situated against Tarvalin proper. And it's real pretty.
It is very pretty. And it sort of gives you an outlay of the way the streets are laid out and gives you that rose shape, a little more idea of the hill in the center.
Which I never thought of Tarvalin as having topography. I thought of it as being, completely just a flat sandbar with a city part on top. I never thought of it as having like a hill for the fortress of the actual tower, but I like it.
If you look at the way it was formed, right? It was formed when Rand Lewis Theron created Dragonmount. And there's an upwelling of land, right? The ripple, basically, of Dragonmount creates this upwelling that splits the river in two. So this is sort of, I would think of it as a significant amount of land getting pushed up. And then the river flows around it.
Yeah, I have a hard time remembering how big this river is, and thus how big an island in it can be. It's a scale that boggles my little mind.
And then we sort of pan down into the tower and see all the floors. Yeah, they really did a great job modeling Tarvalin.
Yeah, and then we visit Nynaeve, who's clearly sitting up all night having, waking nightmare
right.
flashback memories. Because it's only the next day.
Yeah, and she was in there for years, right? Like, and it feels like years to her still. It will fade, but it's not faded yet.
Yeah. And she goes back to get her ring before she opens the door. Like, she is cognizant.
They are showing off her accepted bands now.
Yeah, she's got the cool watercolor stamp bands on the thing. Also, I wanted to point out, they must be in a really, really nice climate because all their walls are like latticed with holes.
Yeah, it feels very Mediterranean, which if you look at Tarvalin, there's no reason for it to be Mediterranean. It's landlocked as fuck, right? It is in the...
Yeah,
right.
Dragon Mount is like covered in snow.
Which in fairness, just the peak of it, right? But like...
Yeah, it comes pretty far down the slopes in the winter, according to some people's birth stories.
Hey, the one power. They're using the one power to warm their rooms, even... with the lattice.
I don't think it's the one power. I think it's the engineering of the furnace that we saw. Sort of hinted at in season 1. Like they've got like one Age of Legends like engine still beating down at the heart of the tower or something. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of weird to have just open lattice work walls and like, okay, I guess we'll let all the bugs and the birds and the breezes in. Like, cool.
Magic.
All right.
I'm waving my fingers and going magic. Ooh, that's how they're doing it. Wards. They have wards. Wards work. They keep out the bugs. They keep out the rats. They keep out the mice.
So this is Egwene bringing breakfast to Nynaeve. Or leftovers, anyway.
Honey cakes, of course, because that reminds her of home. She's trying to remind her of home. And
what does Nynaeve do? Nynaeve sets them aside and then dismisses her.
Walks away.
She does not want to eat. She's way too stressed still.
It's basically saying thank you and just moving them right into the trash.
Mm-hmm. Pushing them to the back of the fridge. It's really there's a gulf between them now, right? Like Egwene is so happy to have Nynaeve back and is just so relieved and wants to be there for her as a friend, and Nynaeve's like, there is a chasm between us that's wider than ever now. Like, but she already couldn't really see her as a friend because there was like a mentor-mentee relationship, but now she's been through this intense trauma that she can't talk about.
And Egwene's dismissal, it wasn't real. And Nynaeve's like, it was real to me. I lived there for years. I had a daughter. I had a husband. They were murdered. I lost them, right? Like, you dismissing it by saying it wasn't real, like, that's the worst kind of thing you can say to somebody who's experienced a trauma. Is like, oh, it wasn't real. You're better now. Because it was real.
Right. But like also it's Egwene comforting herself, right? Because for Egwene, it was a nightmare. Right? Like for Egwene, it really was just one terrible night and now she's back and everything's okay. She's comforting herself on Nynaeve, and Nynaeve is like trying to be there for her, but also like feeling dismissed. And like, yeah, you see the hug that she gives her here is very tentative and it's not the full embrace hug that we got from them in season 1, you know?
Yeah. No, Nynaeve, and Egwene's fully embracing Nynaeve, but Nynaeve sort of has hover hands going on.
Yeah.
And just sort of that looking off into the distance at the horizon. Just like,
It's a gulf.
Yeah.
It's a big old gulf that just can't be bridged, you know? She has no one to turn to aside from Leandrin to talk to about that. Okay, so now we get Lan with Alana's family, which... oh my God, I loved everything about this set and this cast and costumes and just, I really liked all of these establishing shots.
It does help make it feel more like a village, more like a group of people, right? Like, it helps, but, it still somehow feels like a set. This is what bothers me. It's like, even with all those people in the costuming, it feels like 3 huts in the middle of otherwise empty landscape.
It looks like one of the most real sets in all the show, in my opinion. I agree with you, but like I feel like I have at least seen this place in the cool cooking videos that I watch on YouTube. Like,
sure,
basically out in the middle of nowhere, and then it's a cluster of like 4 or 5 houses with like 20 extended families, like, or whatever.
Sure, but give me a shot of the 3 or 4 houses in the background with one, CGI brush in, right? Like, because it's just right now all they're showing me is the one house.
Sure.
That's all. That's all I want.
I was just excited by the fact that there were props that I believed people were using.
Yeah,
Like the
yes.
fire actually looks like it's been used. These dishes actually look in use. Like that was what was impressing me.
I love the terracotta dishes. Yeah, the whole place looks very lived in. I will admit that. It could just be a farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere.
And I love the dynamic with her family, that she has a big family that she comes back to, and like the difference between her and Moraine, right?
Yes.
The way that they treat their families, the size of their families, and the dynamics there.
The openness, the warmness, the way she's eating with her family and Moraine isn't. Yeah, they're definitely trying to show a contrast here where Lan is with this sort of someone who consumes, and they're showing him peeing, right? Bodily functions, eating, Dionysus, right? That sort of Greek god of consumption, right? That's sort of what they're showing here.
Greek god of consumption,
right? Am I complete?
I was seeing a lot more Indian influence,
sure,
and just a lot of non-European puritanical standards.
That's okay. You went Greek, yeah. I mean, Indian's a better, obviously, choice with Priyanka.
Well, and all of their costumes and like the entire dynamic that I see with the giant family and the communal food, it feels very like the Indian cooking videos I watch. And yeah, the openness is just it's a lack of everything that makes Kyrian annoying, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's really getting away from the puritanical beliefs of French society that they're portraying the Kyrian as having.
Exactly. This is and Alana isn't running away from her Aes Sedai-ness in her family, right? Her family accepts her as an Aes Sedai, and she accepts her role as aging at a different speed as the rest of them, and it's clearly not a problem, right? We're seeing all the generations, and she's interacting smoothly with all of them. We don't even know which one is her sibling versus her parent versus her cousin. We can't even tell. She just exists as the Aes Sedai of the family, and it's fine. And then we get the peeing scene, which I just thought went on for way too fucking long.
No, I think I spaced it out. I was just focused. I didn't realize he was peeing, I think. I thought he was just like facing the tree for a while. I'm like, oh. And then only later did I realize he was peeing.
Right, so he's describing how annoying it is to be on suicide watch, basically.
Right, basically. Right, that he's constantly being watched. They make jokes. They're trying to show him that life is worth living. And she's like, nah, you're good.
Also, notice how she's playing with her braid just like Nynaeve might. Almost like Nynaeve might.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a Nynaeve braid.
I think this is an important point, right? Lan didn't get his bond severed, right? She was hiding it, masking it, which is a totally normal thing to do. And then she lost access to the power, so she can't unmask it.
Right.
So that's not the end of a bond. It's not a severing of a bond. In a lot of ways, she ended it herself.
Right. Yeah, she took it, she removed it, but she didn't fully remove it. She didn't intend to take it away completely. But yeah, it's like the call got dropped from the other end, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, it seems like it sort of dissolved, is there what they're trying to say? That after she lost access to the power, like, because she had severed her end of it, you know, or tied off her end of it, or what do you ever want to say, his end of it dissolved, and she had to, like, rebond him. Because she does have to rebond him at the end of the season.
Yeah, that's the only way to make it make sense, because the rebonding at the end of the season is a rebonding, not a unmasking.
Right.
So yeah, there must be some kind of like it only lingered. But Maxim talks about how he's lasted for months and months and months with his bond with Alana, and it's not an issue.
Right.
They just reopen whenever they want to. And since Moraine wasn't actually stilled, although I wonder if Alana was masked from Maxim and then she got shielded from the power, would she lose her bond?
Right. That's what I'm thinking, is even with it masked, it still has to be maintained.
Mm-hmm. I could see that if the person on the other end is unable to channel to reopen that thing, then your end of it, withers, atrophies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. And again, that would be less traumatic to the psyche of the person as opposed to the rubber band snap of a death.
Now, do I think we're like, running in circles to try and justify this thing? Yes.
Is that on brand for the entire book series?
Yes, we do that. Again, I'm hoping for consistency. That's all I'm on. So far, they haven't really gone back and overwritten any of the previous rules that they've established.
No, they've plugged some holes in some interesting ways.
Yes.
But yeah, they haven't yet reversed a rule that they've explicitly laid out. Aside from the dagger is bad for you, but
yeah, but again, I can justify that in like it's getting more corrupt over time, and that's why in the end of season 1, the stabbing was just a stabbing, but then as it's become more corrupt, now it's creating that weird issue where it actually kills people quickly.
I mean, if the evil dagger is capable of gathering energy and powering up, that feels in line with evil dagger properties. I could live with that.
Because that's what Moradin is doing, right, in the books. He's constantly getting stronger and stronger inside of Padan Fain. That's what you have that whole scene where the ends with the Fade getting pinned up to the door, where he gets stronger and stronger every morning. Or he's weak in the mornings, and he gets stronger as time goes by, and the weakness comes less and less until he finally just kills the Fade.
But yeah, basically Alana here is kind of telling Lan, like, I'm not interested in holding on to you and keeping you wrapped in bubble wrap. Like, you need to figure out what you're doing. Like, do you want to be with me? Do you want to go somewhere else? Like, figure it out, dude.
Oh, sorry, I'm not saying Moradin. I meant more death.
Oh, I knew who you meant. That's why I didn't correct you. I just knew who you meant.
Nen talks on it. He's got my errors.
Nice. Okay, another reference to Cadsuane and how Nynaeve stacks up against her. And you need to go be there for Nynaeve to be her warder. And then Lan's like, but I'm Landman Dragarin, so I need to drag this out.
Oh, and his whole, like, I'm not looking to be a warder to somebody else because I failed Moraine. It's like, I'm a failure. I could never be that to some Nynaeve. Oh my God, roll my eyes.
And then we get a backstory drop about how something happened to Moraine 20 years ago, just before she met Lan, that changed her. And so Lan gets a clue to I don't know exactly what he gets a clue to, but he gets a clue to the fact that something really is up with Moraine.
Oh, I think that's the prophecy, right? Guitarra Moroso's prophecy. We see that, right? And that's the thing that happened, is this responsibility came upon her to find the dragon reborn. And that changed her entirely, because before she was going to fall in love and, sort of not be that responsible and just be basically be Suan's lover.
Be a fishwife.
Yeah, be a fishwife, right? Yeah.
Be a terrible fishwife.
Right.
That was her goal.
And she was looking forward to that. And then this responsibility came upon her, and it was basically more important than any family connection she has.
Okay, we got to stop on the joints.
Okay.
You got to pause so we can talk. We can talk about, you finish your point, and then we can talk about the damn joints. But yeah, Alana doesn't know what happened, but she knows Moraine from before, whereas Lan knows what happened, but only knows the Moraine from after.
Right.
So getting this picture into what a big difference it made in her temperament and how that showed up to Alana, I think helps him fill in a little bit more of the, like, puzzle that leads to him resolving his shit with her.
So I would argue these are not joints.
Okay, so we're switching to Moraine coming back into her room, taking the covers off, checking out her old dollhouse and music set. And then she opens up a box with what looks like some real dank doobies.
I think these are cigars. I think this is Two Rivers Tobacco reference. I think these are cigars shipped from the Two Rivers. They're too big. They're too thick. They're either that or, obviously what you can do with this, basically take cigar papers and put weed in them.
So when I said joint, that was what I meant.
Those would be blunts.
Yes, that I said joint as the vaguest colloquialism for this is Two Rivers tobacco wrapped up in an actual tobacco leaf.
Okay.
Because Moraine likes to get high. I was not using my weed terminology correctly.
Okay.
But these look like blunts. These I recently was at a party where someone was actually using tobacco leaves to roll up weed, and it looked a lot like this.
Whatever it is, it's clearly Two Rivers Tobacco, is what I'm saying.
Definitely. Absolutely. This has to be a reference to that conservation of storytelling, definitely.
Also, just like, come on, we haven't had any references to Two Rivers Tobacco. They're supposed to grow sheep and wool, and that's supposed to be known everywhere.
Yeah, and I love the fact that Moraine is the kind of woman who would have Two Rivers Tobacco in nice rolled blunts in a nice box in her childhood room. Like, Moraine's awesome.
The only issue is they're at least 20 years old, which means they are dry as shit and probably not smokable.
Yes, I mean, then there is that where it's like, girl, you mean you didn't take that to the tower with you? Really? Your sister didn't sneak in here and get them after you've been gone for a week? Like, come
Those
on,
wouldn't have
really?
lasted. They wouldn't have lasted. Well, yeah, and they were just out in a box, clearly.
But visually speaking, I like knowing that she's the kind of teenager who would smoke joints, blunts.
While sitting at a writing table, composing poetry, I'm sure.
Bad poetry, so moody and angsty. Okay, and then we turn to the portrait.
Yeah.
Very important visual. This is a portrait of Moraine with her little sister when Moraine is obviously a young adult and her little sister is 9, 10, significantly smaller than her.
Prepubescent, yeah, but a child.
Yeah, probably like 15 and 10 is the ages here, right? Like the one is adult-sized-ish and the other is a true child. And she's looking at that and thinking about all that her life could have been.
Mm-hmm. It's also clear here she's got this sort of fancy, almost crown-like structure on her head, bonnet-like structure on her head, right? It's clear that Moraine was meant to be the ruler, basically the next queen of Cairhien, right? That was hers for the taking.
At least the next leader of House Damodar.
Right,
she was
certainly.
supposed to carry the weight of the house. And when she went off to be an Aes Sedai, her little sister was forced to take that mantle up. This is before their uncle ruined them with the Aiel War and everything. This is before the war, you know?
Mm-hmm. And before Moraine knew she could channel, probably.
Yep, definitely. Or maybe like painted as a going away moment, like because she was going to have to leave because she knew how to channel. Like this was painted at that moment, perhaps at the latest. Yeah. It's so sad. So she got a bottle of Ghealdan in red because she knows that that's the way to get Logain to start talking. And then she looks at her little sister managing the household and marches out the door and checks on the asylum.
So Rand had to work really hard to get in to see Logain. Moraine just says, hey, I'm coming in. Let me in. Open up.
Because she's the one who got him placed there. She gets whatever she wants. She's there as a Aes Sedai lady. All right, so she's here to bargain with Logain for Rand's teaching. But this is him getting to see the shield inside her, too.
Do you think he notices? Like, when do you think he notices? Right away? Or do you think there's a moment?
Not right away. I think somewhere in this conversation he notices. I think probably when she pulls the knife out, he probably looks at her more closely.
And this is where we sort of get the Moraine manipulates everything. She got Logain here, she got Rand here, all so that he could teach.
I love how Moraine offers him wine just so that way he can reject it and she can offer him what he really wants.
I love the double entendre there where she says those who are cut off from the one power desire most of all. She's cut off from the one power. So she's looking down that knife with just as much desire as he is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is what makes him look at her more closely. Because he's like, wait, you know what I mean? You know what I'm feeling? What?
There's the crescent. Yep, nice catch. Yeah, it is interesting. She keeps more than an arm's length between her and Logain. Which she wouldn't necessarily have to do if she could channel.
Mm-hmm. But she's also obliquely referenced the idea that maybe she knows what she's talking about. And he can now see the knot. So whether or not she was bluffing, he knows. He knows that she can't channel currently. All right, so now Egwene and Elaine actually having a conversation where I feel like they're building a relationship and I don't get to criticize them for not having done that. Because they're mopping the floor and talking about, like, relationship shit. Like, it's...
They're gossiping over chores. What else do you do when you're a novice, right?
Like, I desperately wanted to see stuff like this. And my only complaint is how little of it there is. Okay, Elaine, oh my God. Say it again louder for the people in the back. It's her fucking trauma. Why do you feel like you have to fix it? That's not your fucking job. This is what I need to tell myself all the time. That's why I'm telling Elaine to preach to me.
My only complaint about that is the exact opposite of what Elaine does for the entire book series. She's always trying to fix the relationship.
It was weird hearing it from Elaine, the diplomat, Trakand.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
For sure. It felt very out of character with Book Elaine. Nonetheless, I really liked hearing it.
Yeah, that's fair. It's true. It's true. Don't get me wrong. It's just weird hearing it from Elaine's mouth. I'm like, what?
Yeah, of all people. Maybe she's more astute in the show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is Egwene trying to look out for everyone and take care of everyone because she is mother, right? Like, her calling is to take care of everyone. But she feels so small in the tower. And she looks so small in the set. You know, you're really getting that visual. Like, she is going to ascend to the highest point. But right now, just like the Amerlin was before her, she is scrubbing the floors on the base level.
And how true is that when you go to college, right? In high school, you might be, you know, top 5, top 1%, top, you know, valedictorian, whatever. But that's out of 400 local people at the most. I think that's the average graduating size. But then you go off to college and all of a sudden, you know, the bottom half of people have either not gone off to college or gone on to, you know, some sort of trade school. And you end up with this very intelligent group of select people that you have to compete with. And it's a bigger pool and you feel small. And you've got all the people who have all the accomplishments, all the professors who do all the things. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, you're a freshman. You're the lowest of the low. You're a novice, right? It's a different feeling than I think I've ever felt before going off to college like that. You do feel really small because you're at the bottom of the institution and the entire institution is sitting above you and expecting all sorts of things from you.
Yeah.
Really liking the set design as well. The tiles on the floor, the gates, the carvings, all really good.
Yeah, the columns, it's also cool. Yeah, Nynaeve is super uncomfortable with how the novices are bowing to her in the hallways. And yeah, then she heads off to the warder training yard. We get lots of men, and she's looking for Ivan and Maxim. But instead she just runs into some horny young dude she hasn't even met before who's trying to flirt it up with her.
And Leandrin watches this whole thing for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Leandrin spies on this whole encounter.
She's like, I love Nynaeve. Back off, man. Or I love Lan.
Yeah, exactly. She gives him the look of like, I am so taken. Just get out of here. And then Leandrin gets a message from one of her Red sisters. It's an eyes and ears report from the Reds about the Shan-Chan attacking.
Mm-hmm. That leads to her go right here.
Oh my God, Liana! Why do you have the coolest clothes?
She really does. They really outdid themselves with her like outfit.
I need her earrings. I need her wardrobe. I would not be able to pull any of it off, and I need it anyway.
The collars on that thing are just crazy, and they look cool. Like, honestly, I could see that being a new fashion trend.
Seriously. Ugh, God, it's so pretty. And she wears it so well.
Not sure why Leandrin was spying on Nynaeve other than for the transition. I feel like they did it just to like say, oh, we're going through the tower. Let's follow these people.
Yeah, she was walking by and just glanced in and happened to see that. Yeah, I don't think it was meant to be anything other than the transition. And the fact that any time Nynaeve and Leandrin are around, Leandrin is watching Nynaeve. Right. It also drives that point home.
I love that reference. The West is always under attack, usually from itself. Like Terabon Plain, Almuth Plain, Terabon, like those places are just constantly fighting, right? So news that there's fighting in the West just is like, yeah, of course. It's like hearing there's a war in the Middle East.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the energy coming from it. Yeah.
And so Leandrin's basically trying to pin down where the Amerlin is.
As far as I can tell, that's the only thing that she actually needs from this exchange is to know that Swan isn't in the tower.
That is a bit of clever Aes Sedai thought play that I speak with the keeper every time I open my mouth. Basically, I am the keeper, therefore the keeper...
The Amerlin?
I am the Amerlin, right? The keeper becomes the Amerlin when the Amerlin is away.
Which is an interesting deviation from the book. And I'm wondering if that has some kind of precedence with like papal stuff. Because I remember when I was watching one of the two shows called The Borgia, there's an incident where we have a woman pope briefly because he leaves his daughter like in charge while he goes off to do some military thing. It was an episode item, and there are stories that like I've actually read about that like that really happened, that like there have been women popes for like a day or a week or whatever. I think specifically because of that guy. And so I'm wondering if they decided to go with that rule for this, because that totally isn't how it was in the books.
That's one of the reasons we have a vice president, right? If the president is incapacitated or can't do their job or out of contact, the vice president becomes the president, right, for that period of time. It's just in our modern society that doesn't really happen, but you can imagine if the Amberlin has to travel, she's gone for weeks at minimum. Somebody has to be able to act in her absence.
Exactly. The tyranny of distance makes that. It makes more sense, honestly, than book canon if you really think about it. So, yeah, interesting.
Foreshadowing, if she falls, you'll fall with her.
Like, yes, we will be getting stilled Liana.
Yeah.
That is going to be a thing. Or dead Liana, either way. She's going to have a fall from grace.
I really hope we get to see her doing the whole, like, conversion to sexy dancing.
Except I think she's already a much more sexual person.
Right.
But yes. Yeah, I want to see that. I want to see that fashion sense let loose from being in charge.
Exactly.
Perrin and Elias with the wolves.
The dog-like wolves, but yes.
You know what? They're good puppers.
They're good,
and
yeah.
that's all that matters. And Hopper's already attached himself to Perrin.
Totally. I like Elias saying, I am them. Basically, I am a wolf, right?
Yeah. Like, there is no separation between me and the wolves.
And this is where we get the term wolf brother, which I'm glad that they use that from the books.
Thank you.
Yep. And also,
What does it mean?
Exactly what it sounds like. What's a wolf brother? You're a brother to a fucking wolf, right? Like, there's no question.
Did I fucking stutter?
Right? I love, that's actually one of my favorite lines in this whole episode. Is just like, what do you think a wolf brother is,
exactly
right?
what it sounds like.
Also love that line when he's like, am I going to change it? No, you're not a fucking werewolf, you asshole. You're a wolf brother.
Yeah. Elias is like, look, I can telepathically communicate with wolves and my eyes are yellow, but you aren't going to turn into a wolf. Are you dumb?
Right.
Like, I love that. I love that.
It's like, Perrin's like, can you define the magic for me? And he's like, yeah, okay, it's obvious, dumbass. And it's like, okay, it's not necessarily that obvious, but whatever.
That is how the cranky old magic mentor works in fantasy books. That is the type, the archetype. All right, and then we get a cool wolf sending. And Perrin's eyes go gold.
Yeah. And that sort of sending of visions instead of communicating through... But, I mean, in a lot of ways, that is how they talk. It's right through what they see and through images. And so we're seeing visions instead of images, which in a lot of ways is how the wolves talk.
This is the most book-like of the things, aside from Hopper's name scene. Like...
Perrin's like, you could have helped. He's like, I did. The wolves attacked.
Yeah.
We just waited for opportunity.
Basically, Perrin said, why didn't you risk getting lynched by the Shinarans in order to prevent getting attacked? And Elias is like, I did the thing that gets me not killed, you know? All right, so they're eating meat, and Elias says, you're going to lose the taste for cooked meat soon enough. It doesn't look like he's eating actual raw meat. I think he's like a total poser since he wasn't eating real raw meat on set that looks like totally fake meat. And I think that the show sucks and Robert Jordan is turning and has grave. Rafe doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't understand the source material at all. You can tell because it's fake meat.
That actor wasn't committed because he didn't take a bite out of actual raw beef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The show's ruined.
Ruined.
It's actual trash.
Yep.
You can tell. Sorry, I had to get that out. It annoys me. It looks so weird. It's fine, but
it looks like gelatin of some kind that they like. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, and then we learn that they are in fact what happened with the White Cloaks. Elias was in fact there for the White Cloak thing in season 1. And that was, in fact, Hopper that talked to him on their way out of the camp.
That explains it.
And we get an explanation for why Hopper attaches to Perrin. It's not just because he likes foolish cubs. It's also because he's got the wound of having lost a mate. And there's a certain, like, shared empathy there. Because Hopper is also perpetually in mourning for his lost mate.
And also the whole, like, Perrin's having nightmares about killing his wife over and over and over again.
Yes, apparently every wolf brother within a 100-mile radius has been plagued by these guilt nightmares for months. And then Elias lets us know that women who can channel in wolf brothers are a bad mix, suggesting he has the same backstory as the books.
Also suggesting that while Perrin was with Moraine, he was avoiding them.
Yes. Because Perrin's like, why didn't you come help me before? And he's like, because you're with an Aes Sedai. Duh.
Yeah, fuck that.
And then we get the Hopper vision. It's so cute.
Hopper's trying to communicate his name.
Yeah, and he's jumping and trying to catch at the sparks. And yeah, he's showing Perrin his name, being like, I like you enough to try to communicate that. And he basically has the baby talk interpretation of the name. Because Elias is like, it's more like he who soars, but that's even a simplification. But
Close enough. A hopper.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll go with hopper. Yeah, and that smile on his face, like, oh, stupid cub.
Yeah, it's definitely a foolish cub look, which is good. It's good. We've now got 2 older mentors taking care of our foolish cub Perrin.
Oh, see, that shot gave me more buildings and more of a... Okay, that's exactly what I was asking for.
Yeah, there you go. Just got to watch more slowly.
I do, yeah. So sometimes those shots are real fast.
They are. Again, I shake my fist at the editors who are forced to cut down to 60 minutes.
Like I feel like... Remember how in Lord of the Rings they would do those long panning overhead shots of them traveling with the music in the background? And you were just like, okay,
Yeah, it went on and on and on. Panning shots from helicopters. Yes.
Give me some music with each, like, that I can associate with each location that comes in with, that's got some real uniqueness to it, right? Like,
Yeah. Okay, so this scene, this is the beginning of the Lan Ivan Maxim thing. Okay? Did you catch that?
No, what was the thing that I was supposed to catch?
Lan was reading the poem.
Yeah.
And then he went to put it away, and Bascom came down the stairs just in time to catch Lan hurriedly closing his bags.
Oh.
That's the beginning of them deciding that they need to find the poem and confront him and all that.
Eye roll.
Well, but nonetheless, that is the beginning of that sequence.
They're just so nosy about his business.
So this is the scene where we get to talk about bond mechanics with Maskim and Lan.
And Lan talks about it not having it get masked a lot.
Because Maskim thinks he's the only one who does that. It's like unacknowledged knowledge within the Warder Aes Sedai world. Like, nobody does this, even though it's technically known about. It's kind of looked down on, I think, by the Aes Sedai, but some Aes Sedai work it out with their warders anyway on the down lows, but it's not talked about amongst the warders, you know? He talks about how they mask the bond, except in battle in bed, the 2
fight
most
or flight
important times.
No. Yeah. Probably all 4 of the Fs, honestly.
Yeah, probably.
Warders just don't freeze.
No, not really. And I like this advice from Maxim of, like, not all marriages are the same. Like, why should all warder bonds be the same? Like, relationships are different, you know?
And it is true, right? Every individuals are different, and every relationship is different, right? So every marriage has to have, uniqueness in it.
Yeah. And Aes Sedai that insist that warders are all just trained dogs are missing the point, Leandrin.
Well, if you've never had one. All right, so Moraine's about to do something drastic, according to the music.
Yeah, she's going to talk to someone.
Oh, and this guy turns out to be one of her sister's spies.
Yeah.
I like his attitude. Shame it didn't take the buildings around it.
I hate that attitude. What in the miserable capitalist shitburger? Ugh.
But
so
we do
Kyriana.
have a history of, like, these bigoted guards in Kyrianan, right? That's definitely something he wrote into.
Yeah. I feel like Anver mentions his name later, and I feel like it's literally the name of one of the asshole guards in the books.
It is. Yeah.
All right, so up to the hillside with Rand and Celine and hashtag Team Hair versus Team Hood.
Yes, it's hair.
The inciting
I was on team. Of course,
it was hair.
Team. It was always hair.
It is a bad wig.
Yeah.
It's a bad wig. Everyone with a brain knew it was a bad wig. It's a bad wig.
It's always been a bad wig.
It was never a hood. All right, so then Lanfear does this stupid thing where she's like, oh, by the way, the only reason I interact with you is to talk about my ex. That's not weird and complicated at all. Her line, it's easy for you to say you don't have a past because you're too young to have one. Like, that line is so loaded when you know
that she's thousands of years old or hundreds of years old and he's not.
Yeah. And the way she's talking about him to him
right.
And it's just like, it would be creepy except for the part where you know, but like he doesn't know. And it's just like, can you imagine standing there while your current partner just like waxes poetic about their ex? Like, ugh. Be like, shut up and move on.
I mean, what if it was someone who, like, died, right? Like, if they're talking about their ex who died, who they were never not in love with, but they're not around anymore.
Well, that's not the vibe I'm getting from her delivery.
True.
So I think it's weird.
Oh, it's definitely weird. She's being weird as fuck, right?
Yeah.
She's being Lanfear Celine weird, which is this, like, weird obsessive love, but somehow not with him. The idea of him that she has in her head that is Louis Theron. But even her idea of Louis Theron was never accurate to begin with.
And she even admits it. It's so... Ugh. So, okay, I love that he says it looks like the world still fits together while standing on, like, a cliff scarp.
Yeah, it's completely broken off ledge. Yeah. Probably, let's say it's a remnant of the breaking.
Exactly. He's like, yeah, the world looks so whole from up here on this literal scar that the breaking left behind. Ridiculous.
Oh, okay. That's just the flirtiest damn thing you can do. Let me lean against your chest, look up into your eyes, and say, if you want something, you have to take it.
And then bat your eyelashes.
Right.
It's just, yeah. It's like, I know everyone got mad at Rand for kissing her because, like, stay away from her. She's terrible. But also, like, what are you supposed to do in that scenario?
Right. In that situation, you're like, okay, I'll kiss her and then get the hell out of here. Right.
Like that's just, it's too seductive. It's just too seductive. Also,
let's just say, like, to get up to this ledge, they must have gone on a hell of a hike. Like, they got to be sweating and panting and, like, can you imagine? We've done hikes, right? We know what it's like to hike.
Oh, yeah.
They're not breathing nearly hard enough.
Well, I mean, there is this thing called resting for a few minutes and then shooting the scene and kissing and talking. It's not like they, like, booked it to the top of the hill and then immediately started making out.
And then Matt gambling with Min,
and he has the same luck he did in season 1, it seems.
Yep. No good luck. We do not have Matt's lucky night yet.
No, he still has decently bad luck.
Right.
But they're clearly having fun gambling. She's taking his money, and he's teasing her about her powers. And, like, the camaraderie between them clearly has grown, and they're actual friends now.
Right. Which I like. I like the relationship.
I like their camaraderie. I love how she emphasizes rooms.
Yeah.
Because, like, I can't quite tell if he's coming on to her or not.
I feel like he is, but only out of just sheer, like, instinct and habit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he can't not flirt, but also his heart's not in it. He's not really. He would be weird if she actually responded in kind.
Right.
Like,
he'd be like, whoa, wait, what?
But he has to do that so that way she can rebut and, like,
that's their dynamic. That's what they're doing, right? He advances, she pushes back.
Exactly. And it's totally platonic and great. But then the reason she really wants 2 rooms also is because she's expecting to meet dark friendly people and needs the space. Like, she can easily disguise it under I'm not sleeping with you, but, like, she has an ulterior motive also.
And then just another shot of Leandrin from the side through a doorway. Think that's a theme, perhaps? That there's some sort of shut off, closed off part of her that we're about to find out about?
You think? You think maybe Leandrin is going to open up a skosh? Okay, so this is Nynaeve huddling in the testing room, presumably hoping that her daughter will come out at some point.
I like that thought.
And yeah, Leandrin comes by and is like, weird that you can bring yourself in here. But I think the reason is because she's just wishing her daughter would come out, And then, yeah, Leandrin comes in and sits down and has a real heart-to-heart relationship, which underscores the betrayal later.
Right.
That Nynaeve feels from her.
Because this really does feel like she's trying to connect in a very friendly way. And then to find out that she's Black Ajah, that's hell of an undercut.
Right, because in the books, it's just, oh, I knew all Aes Sedai sucked. But in this context, this is the only person that she has told about her daughter. She can't tell Egwene about this trauma, but she can tell Leandrin. Leandrin's the person she can go to as older and wiser and able to hear that.
Right, and this whole, like, I've been in there for years. Egwene doesn't realize that, right? Egwene thinks it was a night for her, right? Like, and...
Exactly.
She's keeping that as a secret, and that's why one of the reasons it's hard to reconnect is just like, holy crap.
And then Leandrin opens up in turn and talks about her son and the pain there. And it's like, again, the betrayal is personal when it happens. Because I believe Leandrin here. I think she's using the truth as a weapon here. I don't think she's just blowing smoke up anyone's ass.
No, she uses the truth. But I love the reference to the 3 O's binding us and that little smile, like, but not me, really. Not most of us, but not me.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's definitely trying to connect to bring Nynaeve to the dark.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. She wants to send her. She's ordered to send her to the Shan-Chan.
Yeah. So yeah, Leandrin lays down some hard truths, and Nynaeve says, I can see why you're not allowed to teach novices. Like, woof, that's just too heavy. You have to learn a certain amount before you're able to hear that. So Leandrin says, and then when it's gone, you find another. She's never actually taken that advice. Her son has not yet died. She's only had one secret son in her life. So she literally doesn't know that advice works. Okay, and then this fucking topic turn. She's like, let me have this deep, intimate, painful moment with you. And then just about face, I'm going to give you this information with a wink and a nod that's going to send you to Falm.
So, I mean, if we're thinking about this as one conversation, right? Leandrin comes in with the goal of getting her to Falma and starts by sharing this personal thing that Nynaeve really kind of already knows, right? To rope her in and to gain as much trust as possible. So when she does share this thing, Nynaeve doesn't question it. It's coming from a trusted source, someone who's opened up and is willing to share this tidbit of information that might be relevant to you. When really that was her whole goal this entire time.
Yeah.
Was to share that information.
I agree. It just feels like such an abrupt topic shift, you know? And it just feels like it's such a wink and a nod of like, I know you're going to do something with this information. You know, which like, I don't know. It felt like there was maybe some transitional conversation that got lost or something in the editing. But trap number 1 for our Supergirls to go stumbling into.
Right.
All right. And then we have the meditation scene with the warders, which is supposed to just be a funny comment on how Maxim is bad at meditating, but actually the entire thing is cover for him to go get the poem and talk to Alana and like have that, you know, entire spying on land situation. Like they're using the meditation routine to not rouse Lan's suspicions. But I do love this conversation between Ivan and Lan.
Also, Ivan's like old and wise like us. I'm like, Ivan, what are you, 20?
I know, right? I mean, he's probably like 25. But yeah, you know.
I mean, realistically, isn't he like 40?
I mean, I would assume so, yeah. Like all the warders are like reasonably mature people. So
Maxim, ADHD, a little bit. Twitch. Got to get up and move.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely the body language. And that's clearly in character for him to be bad at meditating. Okay, this line that he's about to say, or the thing about like us quiet ones, we're quiet because the conversation's always going in our own heads. Like, oh, God.
Yeah, that's
I'm
rough.
not one of the quiet ones, but I know a lot of the quiet ones, and we are all feeling seen.
So one of the things that's very interesting is occasionally when I'm just sitting around not doing anything, I'll replay those conversations in my head, and I will gesture and mouth words as though I was having that conversation. It's completely unconscious, and never will catch me doing it every once in a while. And in the beginning, it was always weirding her out. She was like, why are you frowning and making those gestures at me? What did I do? What did I say? I'm like, it's not you. I had to explain. I'm replaying a conversation from earlier in the day or from you know, last week during work, and I'm just sort of drifting off. And now she'll catch me doing it and be like, oh, you thinking about work? I'm like, yeah. Mm-hmm. She's like, stop that. And so yeah, it's really funny because I don't know I'm doing it, but yeah, that's I'm constantly replaying those conversations, especially the ones that are confrontational or hurtful or where someone walks away angry. Like those don't go away easily.
Oh my God, yeah, those play over and over in my head all the time, and I'll sometimes I'll get caught up in the emotion again. For sure, especially embarrassment. Like those ones really can catch me up in a full-blown like daydream. But I'm also like, you didn't do stage stuff as a kid, but I was one of those kids who like, I had to train myself to not be saying everyone else's lines silently.
Sure. Yeah.
Like I got scolded for that for probably like 3 years before I was able to like be reasonably good at not, because I was always annoyed at everyone else for getting their lines and talking too slow and can't you just fucking do it and like care about this project. And so I'm saying their lines silently and everyone's like, we can see your lips moving.
Please stop.
Stop. But this gets Lan to open up. and say, okay, you understand the brooding thing. I can tell you this hurtful thing that Moiraine said to me and actually like process that. And Ivan's response is, you're so silly. Obviously, Aes Sedai and warders aren't meant to be equals. Like, it's meant to be an unequal relationship. Why are you fighting that?
Right. She's like, they're superhumans who can do magic. You can, you're a human with a sword, right?
Yeah.
But of course, it's the exact opposite of what she actually meant, which of course she meant that Lan is superior, not, of course, warders are inferior, right? There's like, you're doing it without these powers. That makes you the superior person, even though I'm the more powerful one.
Yeah. Okay. And so that line that Ivan said about what does Alana want? She wants to defeat the Dark One and have dessert after.
That is a good one. Good line. Yeah.
That is her. And I feel like not only is it funny and about her sexuality, but it also is, I feel like they're laying a lot of groundwork for when Alana does the thing, we're going to understand and be on her side.
God, I hope not.
I think that they are laying the groundwork for that to be the thing, is that we understand why she does it and we're not mad about it. And I'm mad about the fact that I think that that's what they're trying to do, but I'm pretty sure that that's what they're trying to do. She will do anything for the light, even betray everything and everyone she's ever known and loved and all of her other oaths. She will do that for the light. That's who Alana is.
I feel like they've also combined her with Myrelle, right? In the rehabilitation of warders, right? They're doing that with Lan, where this is sort of that scene where he's post Moiraine in the later books. They're bringing that back from like book 6, right? Like
yeah. Morelle is gone. Morelle is long gone.
Right.
She has been completely subsumed into Alana.
And so Lan says he doesn't know what Moiraine wants, which I guess he doesn't. He doesn't. It just drives me nuts that she's not communicating with him.
Yeah. But it is what it is now. We got to play it out.
And so, meanwhile, Alana and Maxim are snooping.
Finding the poem.
And you hear, of course, Ishamael, not anybody else.
Again, this is why I think that he was reciting the poem at the beginning, because we hear him doing the voiceover every time someone looks at it for the reading.
And they see that as a dark prophecy. And who would read dark prophecies except dark friends? And it's like, dude, really? Like, it's still a prophecy.
No. You're having a far too simple read of their read.
Okay, explain to me why they think that poem makes them think Lan could be a dark friend, because that's just crazy to me.
They don't think he's a dark friend. They think that he's either a dark friend or there's something going on that he needs to fucking let them in on. That's my take, is that they're like, why the fuck does he have this? There has to be an explanation. We can't believe he's a dark friend, so what else is it? And they push him to a point of either you tell us you're a dark friend, which we don't really believe, or you tell us what the fuck is really going on. That's how I choose to interpret it.
All right. I'll go into the next scene with that in mind,
okay.
Then. Or with the scene with Lan where they confront him. Because that wasn't my read on it, but I am seeing much more on these second and third watch throughs than I did on my first.
And I haven't rewatched the rest of the seasons, so, I'm not sure how much proof I have for that, but that's how I want it to make sense. Okay, so we're back with Moiraine in Cairhien, and she decides not to go talk to her sister and go to her own room where her sister is waiting for her, because she knows that Moiraine isn't going to come talk to her unless she forces the situation.
That, by the way, I'm not going to apologize because I can't lie, is, that's such a mean thing to do, to hide behind the three oaths. That way?
I don't know what she's hiding. She's saying, I'm not sorry. That seems pretty honest to me.
Yeah, but to be just mean, to be like, yep, no, I'm not going to apologize. I don't believe that I did anything wrong. Sorry.
Well, she didn't, given that there was a prophecy about the end of the world that is the reason she stayed away.
But rather than explaining like, hey, I had reasons that I had to stay away that I felt like were more important.
Because she's Moiraine and she doesn't communicate with anyone about anything.
No, of course not.
I really like this interaction between them because you see the game of houses in its most rarefied form between Damodred bloodkin.
And it also shows you that is her sister, right? Her sister's doing as much manipulator just to sit down and have tea. She plays the game of houses to get her to have tea with her.
Yeah, and the tea is just, to get Moiraine to have tea is to get Moiraine into a position of having to listen. Having to be a little subservient. Like there's so many layers. Their body language, what they say, what they're open about, what they're honest about, what they're lying about, who's handing tea to who. It's just, Kyrianna to the max. And now the claws come out. I'm not here to make up with you as a sister. I'm here to warn you the fuck off of everything I've built in your absence.
Right, because you've come in here and you've brought a lot of trouble without really contributing anything. Also, I love that. I stole your eyes and ears.
Yeah, Sonder. Yeah. That's that guard. You're going to have to ask me very nicely over tea. God. Everyone go watch everything Lindsay Duncan's ever been in. She's so amazing.
I mean, Sandar is Julian Sandar, right?
No, Sandar and Sandar are spelled different. They're different names.
Oh, AIR?
Yeah. Julian Sandar doesn't have an I.
Okay, you're totally right. Asan Sandar, wow, okay, is a Kyrian soldier stationed at the capital city gate.
Is he? Oh, but he's not the one from Great Hunt that I'm thinking of who gives Rand the runaround, though. I thought that it might be the same.
The Great Hunt, chapter 25.
Oh, that is the name?
Yep.
Of the. Oh, okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, so they gave him different lines, but the same.
Yeah.
It's the same guy.
Writes the names of Randall, Thor, Loyal, and Huron in his book at the gates of the city, then informs them that they are required to return to the gate to give him the name of the inn which they stay.
Okay. There he is.
He is balding. And they made him a bald guy.
All right, so now we go to more relationship building between Egwene and Elaine, where they're
getting drunk.
Yes, they are drunkenly discussing their two different stations in life, and Elaine has this great moment where Egwene says, "Do you want to trade?" Because they're doing the whole "grass is greener on the other side" conversation,
right.
And Elaine is like, no, and it's just really cute. And
It's
I love
really
it.
like, yeah, Elaine knows how good it is to be queen or daughter heir.
Yeah,
right?
she's like, "Oh, I wish that I had freedom in my life," but I wouldn't actually give it up. It's very cute.
Right.
And so then Nynaeve comes in and delivers the news, kicks Elaine out of her own room. And did you notice that the footsteps stop prematurely?
Of course they did, because she's right outside the door listening.
Yeah. They do it in the Foley. They literally do it in the Foley. They show her stopping and listening.
Which, I mean, this is pretty book stable. Like, she goes into the other room and listens through the keyhole, but basically that's what she's doing.
Yeah.
In this scene, right? And so this sort of Elaine, Egwene, and Nynaeve all going on this trip together is pretty book canon, I think.
Yeah. Though I will say, it's ridiculous that they're having this conversation with the door wide open.
Yeah, it's fair.
It's obscene. That's such an important conversation. They wouldn't even try to close the door. So Nynaeve comes in and says, "Hi, all of our friends are in danger. I'm leaving."
Right. You don't have to come.
And Egwene says, "The entire reason I'm here is so I can do something useful the next time a Forsaken attacks my friends."
Right. Which is a little bit of foreshadowing to the end of the season.
Extremely much. Literally, she says, "I could have had a better season finale if I had been in the tower all this time. So now I'm ready for a season finale." It's like the book and it's not. Because in the books, they both get tapped together to go out. But also, they both get misled by Leandrin. So, potato, we're getting to the same end.
Yeah.
And I do like Egwene's argument for coming along, which would never have happened in the books because they both got told to go in the first place.
That's a good point. Yeah, I forgot that Egwene was also included in that.
But Egwene's saying, "I need to keep up. The reason I'm getting all this power is so I can keep up." I think that's something that's never stated outright in the books and should have been.
And Elaine overhears Leandrin telling them the story in the books.
Right. She overhears it through the keyhole after being sent out, so she knows something to listen to. Yeah. And in this, she just took advantage of Nynaeve having no OPSEC at all. So yeah, Nynaeve now knows that there's tunnels under the tower and is taking them out through them, which is...
So they're heading toward the Waygate, right?
I think they're heading towards horses.
Oh, okay.
Because she says it's going to be a long ride.
That's a good point.
We have time to think of a plan.
Right.
And then, "Elaine, I've never snuck up on anyone Tricand." Well, all right, I'm following you, obviously.
I love that. Egwene can't hurt me. You're not a threat. And then Leandrin shows up. Very threateningly, out of the dark.
And her clothes have suddenly darkened to a near black.
Yes, well, it could be the lighting.
I'm sure it's just the lighting, but it's coincidence.
Yeah.
Because, it is still reddish. And then she says, "You were a complication," which in the books, she said that to Min. because Min is the wild card.
Gosh, that's right. Min's not with them.
Yeah, in the books, she looks at Elaine and says, I had other arrangements set for you, but this will do fine. And then looks at Min and says, you are a complication. But with Min not being here, she made Elaine the wild card and didn't have any... Because Elaine has shown no interest or inclination to be part of this group as far as the dark is concerned. They apparently don't consider getting drunk with Egwene to be like grounds for internment with the dark.
But in the books, we thought it was like implicated that she was going to have her killed. That like her going away actually saved her life.
Oh, you're right. I do remember that speculation because it's not clear what Elaine is to any of them.
Yeah.
And what her value would have been. I'm not even really sure why she was... Oh, because she had met Rand once already in the books. So that's why she would have been tagged for something. But in this, she hasn't met Rand yet. So she's just a wild card. Complication. Mm-hmm. It's a really big political complication, too. To like steal the daughter heir is a way bigger mess to make than to just take two country girls.
Totally. I like how Leandrin also only apologizes to Nynaeve before blasting them all into the wall. Doesn't apologize to any of the other ones, just to Nynaeve.
Well, because Nynaeve's the one she's been trying to build a relationship up with. She's the one she's actually betraying. I think she's way more conflicted and upset about this than she was in the books. Because in the books, she was gleeful.
Right.
You know? She actually seems upset here, and I believe her. All right. Now, Min's backstory.
Min in the World of Dreams. This has got to be Moradin controlling this, right?
So we enter to a dream where she's reliving her trauma and she says, no, this can't be happening. I escaped. So she knows immediately that this isn't real, but also it is clearly the kind of reality that a Moradin dream shard brings to the table, right?
And I love the way they show that it's a dream by the cuts.
Yeah.
Where he, like, normally it would be bad editing, right? But this idea that you're in the dream world and people just aren't from one place are then suddenly in another is totally canon.
Yeah, I like it. It lends its way to the wibbly wobbly nature of the time. But yeah, we're getting Min's backstory, and this is where I start to get a little angry.
Why? Tell me.
This is when I start to really feel like Min's story is falling off rails that I can follow happily. Like the reframing of her backstory as being exploited as a circus freak by her aunts. Like there's ways that could work, but I don't like what happens with Min in this season. And I was really holding out hope until this scene. And then I was like, I feel like all the doubts I've been holding back are now coming in, and I can't lie to myself anymore and say that I like what they're doing with Min. At this point, I don't know what's happening, and I don't like it.
I mean, they're adding back trauma to all the characters' backstories. Matt's parents went from great to sucking. Min's aunts went from great to sucking, right? Anyone who has good parents, they went to shit. So they can add trauma to the character's backstory.
I'm not upset with them adding trauma to the backstory, but I don't like the Min character. And when we got opening to her backstory, I thought I was going to start getting to make sense in a way that I just don't know what's happening with her. And this didn't answer that. I'm fine with her having a tragic backstory. I liked the fact that her aunts didn't suck in the books, but like, I don't know. There's the way she's being held over a fire by her visions, by Ishamael, by Leandrin. I'm not seeing a good reason for that to be the case yet.
I'm just saying it seems like she was exploited by her aunts. She ran away from that. She became basically an innkeeper / bartender. And then she was found by Moraine.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to be, and she felt like she was going to be exploited again. So she's turning to Leandrin from help to get rid of her visions so she can never be exploited.
Yep.
And that's why she wants to make this pact.
Yep.
And so, yeah, this is just typical, anyone who actually sees the future and people go to them for entertainment, right? They're going to see horrible things in your future, and you want to know about the good things that are happening, right? So she's traumatized by this constant stream of people wanting to know, and it turns out that just bad things are happening to them.
Yeah. And I think the way that the Foley went in that scene, I think it's more than just visions. I think there's like sensation, like she lives snippets of these people's pain and can't get them out of her head. And it's like, it's nightmarish. It's truly nightmarish what she's been experiencing. And then Ishii comes along like the way that I've heard ADHD meds come along and just like quiet everything down, like takes away all that extra echoing noise and just makes it just her voice in her head.
And he becomes, I like Zool, glitchy, ishy.
Leandrin promised something that she could totally not do, just in case you were wondering if she was Black Aja.
Right. It's like, do you think, no, the power can't do that. You have to make a deal with the devil, basically, to get rid of your powers. Because it's unnatural. Your powers are part of you. And just that, like, the confidence that she will help him hurt people, that he knows he can manipulate her well enough to hurt people. And she's just like, fuck, I'm in a corner.
Well, and it's impossible not to hurt people. She's far too deep in entanglement. Anything she does will hurt people.
Right.
It's going to be really difficult for her to not hurt people. He can just confidently assert she will. And she knows it. She can see that there's no way to turn that doesn't cause pain. And so now she's a reluctant co-conspirator for the moment, but she's not happy about it. All right. And then, God, I have so many logistical issues with this scene.
In what way?
Well, mostly physics.
Oh, okay.
Okay, first of all, why are you sleeping outside when there's a hut? Second of all, you would not go to sleep with a fire that is still snapping and sparking that brightly. Third of all, if you'd been sleeping for a while, the fire would have burned down. Fourth of all, what the fuck are the lights on the house? They aren't candles. They're not flickering. We haven't had any explanation for electricity. If you're bothering to light candles that somehow don't flicker, why are you not sleeping in the house? The only explanation is that there's cool technology and there's a cutscene where they decide that they want to camp out tonight, even though they've already prepped the cabin. All my issues are with the physics of fire. That's it. That's all I'm mad about.
Hypothesis: this is all happening in Teleron Riyadh.
Oh.
And that's why the lights are working the way they're working, which is weird. Whenever it ends with Land Fear and he's waking up from sleep, I have to assume he's not actually waking up, that he's in Teleron Riyadh.
I'll take it. I like the fade coming out of the shadow. It looked cool.
The fade coming out of the shadow is pretty cool. That was like... But I think this is entirely set up by Land Fear.
Yeah. No, it makes no sense that she could scream faster than a Murdral could move.
Mm-hmm. That this is her manipulating him into channeling more, getting used to protecting her. This is her very much as a setup.
Which is what she does in Kinslayer's Dagger on that whole mission, is convince him to channel to protect them. And how calm she is behind him on the cliff.
Right.
She's so confident that everything is going to plan right there. On the other hand, she has long hair right now, which she generally has short hair when she's in Teleron Riyadh.
I mean, either way, it's her setup, right? She brought the fade to force him to channel.
Yes. The entire situation is completely... I mean, she is in control 110% of the way. The only question is, can you explain the lights with Teleron Riyadh?
That's just, yeah, if that really bothers you, you could head again into this Teleron Riyadh. But if you, otherwise it's her just bringing a real fade in to get killed.
Well, she would bring a real fade in.
That's true.
She likes the spice of danger.
It's just the mist in the background and, the lights being on. She would want to fool him in a very realistic environment. She would look the same, right? If she was controlling the dream.
Yeah, but then it shifts back into the real world so that way Moraine can stab her with no break.
Oh, that's a good point.
So, very clever dream manipulation?
Yeah,
or...
no, just no. Yeah.
But maybe they could explain that they actually have, gas-powered lights or something.
Okay, here's my theory then. If they're in the real world, they just watched the sunset. They had a fire built up. The sun just went down. They had lit the lights on their way down to watch the sunset from the outside. And they had, taken a short nap, and just before it really got cold and chilly.
All right. And then they do go into the house after their little scare, so I guess it's like they had it set up. All right, whatever. But what's important and masterful here is how Lanfear takes him down to the absolute emotional depth of rejection, and then uses that moment of vulnerability to get the admission of love out of him. Mm-hmm. It's setting the hook just perfect. And this is also the moment that he's like, I don't know, I think she really likes me. It's because of how she responds right here. And he tells Moraine, no, I'm pretty sure there was something not fake between us. It's this interaction.
Well, and she's also manipulating him into the whole, he says he's a monster, she says I'm also a monster, and she shows him, oh, this is what the dark side can do for you. This is how we can control your power. We can both be monsters together.
Rule the world beside me.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, think of the Glory Rand, right? Like,
Yeah.
but Moraine interrupts that.
Yeah, and you can also see smoke coming out of the wood stove chimney in the house. So yeah, that does suggest that they, just fell asleep post sunset sex, presumably.
Yeah, presumably, right? Yeah. Sorry, when I said watch the sunset, I mean bang to the sunset.
Yeah, Netflix and chill. Watch the Sunflix and chill.
Sunflix and chill.
Okay, so this part that she says, this is her explaining why her relationship with LTT was fucked. Is because she was reflecting only what he wanted to see, like a mirror.
Which is exactly what she's doing with Rand.
Yeah, and she's like, that didn't work very well. Denying part of myself and being just what he wanted wasn't good. So I'm going to make that my whole personality for the next several centuries. It's just like, you're so close, girl. You're so close. You're so close. And then you just whiff it.
And I like the leaving the rest of me in darkness while she's actually pretty much in darkness outside. Completely covered. All you see is like a half of her face, almost like a crescent moon.
A half moon of her face. Yeah, definitely. Leaving her just as the moon. Oh, and then if the man who loved me looked close enough, he didn't actually like what he saw. And I took that personally. I don't know. I'm just like, the psycho ex-girlfriend is such a tragedy, the way she's doing it. And I love that. Because psycho ex-girlfriend is a stupid trope, but she's making it tragic instead of comedic.
Well, and also the whole, like, you have to share who you are. If you want someone to love you, you can't hide parts of yourself, even if you're ashamed of them, which is a good argument and it is true. And
then also the line where he's like, well, I don't know how much time we have. And she says the same as everyone else, never enough.
Right.
It's just, oh my God, like, yes, that is such an important thing people need to think about. All right, so now Ivan, Maxim, and Alana are conferring while Lan is asleep, and because the three of them are equal, right? So they're all conferring information. And they say Lan must not know who it's about. I think that's, again, because they're like, how could he know this unless he's a dark friend, and he's not a dark friend, right? Like, he must be ignorant. He must be ignorant. They're trying to convince themselves of that, I think.
So, but why is Maxim the one being like, oh, here's the prophecy, here's Land? How does he know Lanfear's out and free again?
He's the one that roams and gets news. To me, those lines sounded like he's been picking up rumors and is putting it all together, kind of like Tom,
Okay. And
then Ivan apparently is the most scholarly of them and is the one who does the translation for us. And we cut that together with Lanfear getting all BDSM-y on Rand.
So what do you think about serve her and die and yet live still? That's all straight from the book, right?
Yeah, that's just straight out of the book. The only thing different from the books is that they're leaving out parts of it, but all the lines are directly from the prophecy.
Was it her or wasn't it him in some of those?
No. The ancient war she yet fights. Her
she
new
yet
lover
fights,
she
okay,
seeks,
you're right.
who will die, blah, blah, blah. Notice she ties his hands back as though to keep him from channeling, but he hasn't used his hands to channel like any of the times.
I do feel like it's a bit of a trust issue, right? Like it's that whole, I want to pin you down because you have you may be the insane one, so I'm taking a risk. But at the same time, I do feel like she's then also using that as an excuse to pin him down so she can show him something without him reacting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what it is, but it's just funny to me that it's binding the hands that he doesn't need to use the power.
Yeah, yes, and thank you. It is a sex thing.
Well, it's obviously a sex thing,
right?
But like above and beyond that,
there's a meta commentary there about how she's pinning him down and tying him down.
I did like this cutting together.
This is pretty good. I'm a Monster
too, and the bloody and the sexy versions of her cut together, like
which. If you're just watching the show, this might be the moment where you realize the person that was freed was her, right? This might be the first moment that you make that connection. Which you'd be like, oh, shit, right? Yeah. It's sort of anticlimactic for us because we're like, oh, yeah, of course that's her.
Yeah.
And then, she starts channeling. Do you think that's true power or that's just looks like flows of air that he can see?
So what I think is happening is that he can see the glow of her channeling or sense it in some way. We're not seeing the actual glow, right? This is what it looks like when Logain describes seeing Rand in the flashback. This is what they put around Rand in Logain's POV. Because I don't see why she'd have air around herself.
I think it's true power. I got to go with true power, right? Like, I don't know. It's just, I don't think he's seeing her like the one power. He's either seeing the effects, which in this case could be flows of air distorting visual fields, right? Like, I think he's seeing the flows of air that she's going to use to sort of pin him up. Because I don't think he's seeing the one power. And I do think that only Logain had the ability, right, to see the glow. He describes that as a capital T talent.
And you think it's the true power as opposed to the one power because of the way we're seeing it?
You know, every time I pause it, I realize it's just a distortion. It's not. I actually thought it was black, but I'm realizing that's just a visual effect I was seeing. So now, yeah, I do think it's just flows of air, honestly.
And so then
But not the flows of air, but we're actually seeing the air movements, right? The air is moving. And when air moves like that independently, it's going to distort light. And so you're going to see that.
But why is air moving? What does she get out of having air flow around her?
I think she's going to channel to show him that she's also a channel. Like, she's showing him that she's also a channeler.
She's going to, like, tear her clothes off and make her hair fly in cool directions.
Yeah,
like...
do something like that. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. All right.
I mean, whatever it is, it clearly becomes interrupted, right?
Yeah, and you think it's true power, not one power. She's not just one powering out.
Well, you know, the true power is that black stuff that we see her use in the next episode. So I'm sort of back to thinking that this is the one power. Okay. Just we're seeing the air movement before it was going to do whatever it was going to do.
Yeah. I'm inclined to think it's one power, and I guess you're right. Air for dramatic effect is the simplest explanation at this point.
And then interrupting. I'm surprised they didn't go through the throat because they've had a real...
Well, they wanted to do the slitting of the throat as the next move.
Ah, right.
Did you not rewatch this episode before doing this recording?
I did. No, I did. I just said that I'm surprised they didn't start with the spear through the throat because they've done that so many times.
I was also surprised.
Yeah.
But it's because Moraine really wanted to double tap.
Right, totally. Always double tap, right?
Well, also the hair was in the way. She didn't know where the neck was, but she could tell where the heart was.
Fair. And you don't want to start with pulling her hair back because then she might give her enough time to resist. You want to start with the sword through the chest.
Right. If you can paralyze the breathing and the heart beating right off the bat,
right.
You might have a chance to kill her before she reacts. And just throws her to the side. I was shocked at how fast that was. I'm like, Moraine.
Yeah,
holy
damn.
shit.
which has very much Bale-firing Ravine vibes, right?
Yeah, or more like Bale-firing Bilal vibes.
Bilal, sorry, that's right. That's what I want to go with. Sorry, Bale-firing Bilal, where she just walks in and Bilal's like starts to monologue and she just raises her hand and like he's gone.
Yeah, that was very much her Bale-firing Bilal moment, since we know Bilal didn't make it through. They're like, we need to give Moraine her really awesome, like, 30-second insta-kill. So there you go. And then Rand's coitus interruptus has to find expression somewhere. Mm-hmm. And now we know why Rand was choking Moraine.
Right, because she killed Lanfear.
That was not the hypothesis any of us had.
So what do you think about the whole Lanfear being immortal thing? That, like, she can't die normally?
I think that makes total sense.
Okay. Just the true power.
I figure that the Dark Lord has a little, like, RFID chip in all of his Forsaken. And whenever any one of them goes offline, he just, like, reboots them. And then they're able to, their survival instinct then kicks in from the reboot, and they're able to, do whatever they have to do with the dark power to come back. Yeah. I think the idea that they're immortal because the Dark One can just spark them back makes total sense. Like, yeah, you need special weapons to kill them.
Also love how much darkness there is in Rand's channeling. All the black inside his weaves.
Yeah,
showing
it's come
the
on
corruption.
fast for him.
Yep. The way she runs.
Yeah. Also, notice she used his sword to kill Lanfear. He grabs the sword. It's smeared with Lanfear's blood.
Nice. And her knife.
But her knife, yeah. Well, because she, I guess, left the sword in the body while she went for the... No, she pulled the sword out, threw it aside, and then used the knife. It seems a little flamboyant to me, but whatevs.
Knives are easier to get around. The sword would be too long, dude. Like, you have to get it all the way forward and turn it. Sure. Yeah. Knife is faster.
And then yeah, the way she runs out of there is like it's she's very enthusiastic about it, but she's also clearly not an athlete because she is an Aes Sedai who was a lady.
And then I think one of the great cinematic moments in this episode when Lanfear blinks here.
And little black shit starts coming into her eyes. Oh god, it
Yep.
was so good. It was so good. I was just waiting for her to smile before they went to black, you know?
Yeah, good way to end the episode. Enjoyed that episode much more the second time through than I think I did the first time. The first time I was very much annoyed by the Lan plot, and that sort of dominated my thinking.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't my favorite episode of the four we've watched, but it's the kind of slow down and simmer down and just walk down the hallway and have a drink episode. We've been bitching about how those things don't exist.
Right.
I feel like this is the closest we get to that. Episode 4 is the closest we get to just a comfortable filler for building relationships and not moving the plot forward in any huge ways. This is the closest you're going to get to that in this season.
I'm nodding. Yeah.
And I still liked it. It's the least exciting and the most frustrating of the 4 that we've seen so far.
It was very Lanfear focused, right? It was the title. That was sort of how they ended it. That's how they began it. They were really trying to give us the Lanfear manipulation plot line.
And I think that's part of why I like the episode, is because I'm really liking how they're making Lanfear into someone interesting.
Yes.
And so a super Lanfear focused episode, I'm like, I'll push aside all the other plot stuff. Give me more of the Lanfear stuff, because they're much like Leandrin. They're making her not a mustache twirling villain. They're making her someone I want to root for and who I care about and who I feel like has dimension.
And they moved forward the plot line with Leandrin and the 3 girls, right? They're doing that from the books pretty accurately. They're going through the ways. She's kidnapping them a little differently, where she kidnaps them at the beginning rather than at the end. But whatever. Yeah, it was just the Lan plot line, not my favorite. The brief stuff with Perrin, again, much needed, but very brief, and very brief with Matt as well, and Min.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that needs to be able to breathe more in order to feel properly compelling. What we got was good, but the lack of more makes it feel kind of hollow. And yeah, it's like, as much as I can explain the Lan and Moraine plot, and make it make sense and feel like I'm following the story, I don't like it. I just feel like it is internally consistent.
Sure.
I just simply don't like it in and of itself.
Not that there's plenty of plot lines in the Wheel of Time that I don't like, that are internally consistent, that aren't particularly enjoyable. But so, I have some forgiveness for it. But
yeah, I feel that it is internally consistent, and so I'm willing to give it like a C- passing grade. And again, I'm still on my first rewatch, so like we'll see if my assertion that it's internally consistent bears out. But I'm pretty sure that it does. And hopefully next season we don't have anything comparable in terms of wild goose chase flights of fancy.
Don't bet on it.
I won't. But I feel like they resolved this one, so hopefully they don't reopen it and relitigate it or something ridiculous next season, Because at least it ended.
Yes.
At least in the words of Belladonna the Busty Bard, they got platonically divorced and then platonically remarried on a beach. That was the latest TVAD, had Belladonna summarizing that scene. Belladonna the Busty Bard is amazing.
Mm-hmm. TVAD's pretty funny. I actually recommended TVAD to one of my coworkers who's a Wheel of Time fan and doesn't like the show, but they really do enjoy TVAD, and yeah. And I tell them to stay the fuck away from this podcast because I do not want my coworkers listening to this.
Wait, so you said you recommended TVAD to a person who liked TVAD?
They liked it after they listened to it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
They actually took your recommendation and came back with feedback. Oh,
yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and now he's actually giving the show another shot because TVAD talks about it and, sort of points out the good stuff. And he's like, I don't like how much they support it, but I'm like, but I'm giving it another shot and just watching it with the idea that, like, I haven't read the books in mind. So
that's cool.
I'm always happy that well, first of all, happy to get TVAD another listener, obviously, and then glad to give the TV show another shot. I'm really happy that season 2 has increased the standard enough that the show is now considered a good TV show. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not the adaptation of the books that I want, because it's not a shot for shot. Not even like the kind of shot for shot that we've seen other adaptations do. But it's also good enough TV that I think people are going to read the books.
Yeah, no, it's really nice to feel much less caveat-y about my recommendations for season 2. Now I can just be like, well, you know how season 1s are generally rough? This show is no exception. But and that's easier than, well, I'm hoping it'll be good in season 2.
Exactly.
Now I can say it is good in season 2.
It is good in season 2. And who knows, maybe in 20 years this will be good enough that, you know, Hollywood will once again Ouroboros its own tale and create a remake, you know, that's more faithful to the you know, like Dune, right? Got a remake that's much more close to the original material 20 years later.
Disney movies that I remember coming out are getting shot-for-shot remakes.
Right.
Like, the nostalgia loop is going to be down to, like, 2 minutes by the time the show is done. Like, I swear to God. Like, it's too soon. You can't have nostalgia that soon, God damn it. Ugh. No, I'm not getting older. All of you are wrong.
Being in my 40s, I've really had to realize, like, in my 30s, I could deny that I was getting older, right? 30s is just like, I was still in my 20s. It was just like, kind of, I hadn't finished them yet, you know? Yeah, it was the bonus round, right? Like, I was still, but now I'm like, oh shit, like, no, I'm there's physically some things that I'm having a little more trouble doing. I just don't have the stamina I used to have, right? Like, it's subtle, but I do feel like I'm getting older. There is a whole nother generation under me that has a whole nother, you know, culture that I am not really involved in. Now, people my age have children in college.
Yeah.
Who are like, I'm of the age where my peers are starting to become grandparents.
Jesus. That's wild.
Right? I mean, not very many, right? But
sure, but still, yeah.
That's starting to become a thing, right? People could have children at 20, and then their children can have children at 20, and I'm 41.
No, my grandma was very mad at my dad for making her a grandma at age 42.
Right.
She was pissed. She was like, I am too young to be a grandmother.
Right.
But yeah, you have a kid at 21 and that kid has a kid at 21, you will be 42 when you become a grandparent. That is how math works.
And that's not crazy for people to have children at 21.
No, across the scope of historical time, that is a very, very standard age to be popping babies out at.
So, fortunately, my father had me when he was basically 40, and I'm gonna get, you know, I'm jumping every other generation, essentially.
Damn.
Is what I'm saying, is I'm extending
really
the generations.
You're like an ogier compared to everyone else, you know. Oh, it's only been 2 generations for us and 5 for you. Wow.
There is weird examples like that where like people extend the generations way out, especially, you know, when you talk about fathers, right? Because you have these, you know, 60-year-old men who are having children, 67-year-old men who can have children. And so it's like, you know, you can have the grandchildren of the founding fathers still be alive today. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, God, I remember reading recently the last widow of a Civil War veteran had died. Because he'd been 80 and she was 16 when they married.
Right.
And she lived to be like in her 90s or whatever. So it's like,
yeah, right. Yeah. No, it's kind of the generational span is kind of incredible when you think about it. It's incredible that anything changes at all in our society in less than 100 years.
Right. Which then makes you impressed at how many things have changed in the U.S. in our less than 3 centuries of existing.
Yeah. No, it's no wonder it feels like everything's always changing. Yeah.
It also makes the past feel way more present.
It does. It brings it home, and makes you realize just how, you know. And one of the things I really love about fantasy is how it really brings home the past into the present, right? Like these things that happened 3,000 years ago are affecting today in Randland, and you know that feels weird and fantastical. And you think like, well, you know, 3,000 years ago, like, that was, well into the beginning of, Greek and Roman civilization, right? Which we pretty much base our lives around, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is the Roman Empire.
Yeah,
Here's your weekly thinking about the Roman Empire.
The Age of Legends is my Roman Empire.
Oh my God. If he thinks about the Age of Legends more than once a week, red flag.
If he's obsessed with oh God, the stone that won't break.
Quendiar. Jesus.
Quendiar. If he's obsessed with Quendiar, red flag. If he's a collector, red flag. Like, definitely.
Yeah.
Right, like.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's the art imitates life, life imitates art cycle, where like Robert Jordan takes a bunch of his own personal war experience and like the collected war wisdom of people like Sun Tzu, right? Combines them into like cool generals with quippy things to say.
Yeah.
And then I was in this group meeting the other day, and we were talking about just the horrible emotional everything to do with Gaza, Palestine, and people feeling very polarized and like they have to pick sides and they know that picking sides isn't right, and like kind of getting wound up in that and having that moment and talking about that. And I literally came in and was like, when your enemy offers 2 targets, strike at a third. I literally quoted Davram Bashir. Because the conversation had literally come around to, I can't pick Palestine or Israel. I want to pick peace. And all this media, government polarization, needing to pick a side. I don't feel like, I'm like, look, it's from a fantasy series, but it's riffing off of Art of War. Like, picking world peace is, yes. Like, the Dark One wants you to pick one or the other, and
and that's why the wisdom of the Wheel of Time is so good, because Robert Jordan was so well read, and he included this distillation of, I feel like, the knowledge of legends and humans and art and war and philosophy into the Wheel of Time, right? Like, it's one of the reasons I love the series so much, is because no matter what subject I'm talking about, I'm like, oh yeah, like in the Wheel of Time when blah, blah, blah happened, right? Like, he's so good at that. And that, so much of my education in the classics was me going, oh, that's where Robert Jordan got that from. I already know this story because it was already told in the Wheel of Time. Yeah. And I've read the Wheel of Time since I was, way too young.
Yeah, but yeah, totally. I mean, he doesn't have a handle on every single piece of the human experience, but it's enough of a scattershot that it gives you a map. And the rest of things you learn about the world will forever be able to be mapped onto the skeleton that Wheel of Time laid down. And like, Robert Jordan was so well read that's not a bad thing. Like, he had his flaws and his blind spots, but like, God damn, he knew a lot of different things and was able to synthesize them into a whole.
I will say the one thing that he doesn't have a lot of is Shakespeare.
I honestly would bet that was deliberate.
Yeah. As
an American author, kind of trying to like get away from all the European everything and be the American Tolkien and all that. Like, I would not be surprised if he found a bunch of Shakespeare references in his early drafts and then cut them all out just to be ornery.
I also don't think he was trying to be the American Tolkien. I think that's something that just happened later.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And also, obviously, his ideas about women, complicated. Yeah, well. But like, his observations on how men are bad with women, obviously grounded in real experience, right? Like, obviously, he wasn't making up, I observed the difficulties between men and women. He was writing that from an observed, lived experience. And you can get insights about how people are wrong about each other, at least, from that.
That's true.
It's brilliant. He's brilliant.
He was very smart. I'm always impressed by someone who can synthesize that level of information before the internet existed.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. He had to do all of that out of literal books, like from the library. Like, yeah, he looking something up was like, get up and walk across the room to the encyclopedia. Like, and his work still holds up really well, even in an age of the internet. It's keeping us going.
It's still my favorite thing out there, right? Like, Sanderson, I think, is a pale imitation, right? And Sanderson does some things better and some things differently, but it's just, it doesn't have the depth.
No, you can only learn and practice so much. Some of the lived experience and some of the talent is unique to the individual, and Robert Jordan was a rare individual.
Yeah, I feel like Sanderson is the kind of person who studied writing and so knows how to tell a good story because he knows what a good story is made of, right? And so he can assemble a Frankenstein type story, right? Takes the best pieces of all the different stories out there and can assemble something that sounds really, really good. But it still feels a little cobbled together to me, right? I can still see the moving parts. I can still see the joints where he sewed different things together or made the edits, you know? Jordan was telling a story that felt much more organic and like it grew from a seed. And yes, it got a little overgrown at one point and a little brambled and confused. But it felt more like he's telling an organic story about the people in the story. And so Jordan's story feels much more rooted in his characters, whereas Sanderson much more feels rooted in his plot.
Yeah. With all love to K-pop, with all love to K-pop, Sanderson is like K-pop. Sanderson is like K-pop, and RJ is like a blues jam, or maybe even like the Grateful Dead.
Jazz.
Sometimes it has wandered off into some directions that make no sense and no one is having a good time. And other times it is just magic, but there's an organic, loose chaos to it that the thing to me about K-pop that is its signature feat is that it is too perfect. That is what K-pop is. That is the genre's calling card, is that it has been perfected to a point where it is like uncanny valley too perfect.
Sanderson auto-tunes his books.
Exactly. It is auto-tuned, it is over-compressed, and he has edited every single breath out.
Jordan was acoustic.
Yeah, literally. He's literally an acoustic instrument that is, you know, a little warmer on one side because that's where the campfire is, and you got to retune it between songs, and it just has a little bit of that country cowboy twang because it hasn't been in a case in an air-conditioned environment for like 3 years. But like, there's a raw, warm soul to it that has been polished out by the time you get to something like Sanderson.
But at the same time, Sanderson is extremely effective at those emotional moments because he crafts a story so well to get you to that emotional point where you feel the emotion he's going for. You know, like the last 3 books have a lot of emotional moments for me.
Yeah. And I mean, I love K-pop. There is a very specific, like, I know I will get pumped up in a very specific way and have very specific emotional reactions very predictably from this stuff. And I like having that in my arsenal.
And it's extremely well crafted to create that emotional response every single time.
Nothing wrong with it. Like I said, with all love to K-pop, like, it's just there's different styles and different takes, different approaches, and it would be a very boring world if it was all acoustic or all auto-tune. Like, right. I really do prefer a world with both, not either or. Again, if you're being offered 2 options, pick a third. Much like with my gender. It's just, I don't like 2 options. It's dumb. It's bad. Pick another option.
And I think with that, I'm going to pick the option of logging off.
Okay, 2.5 hours. All right, this was our longest one yet. All right, cool.
We
cool.
did a lot of talking before and after, so thank you everyone who stayed with us, and we really appreciate it, all the live listeners.
Thanks to everyone who's a Patreon and otherwise. Bye.
Bye. Well, first of all, how are you doing? Didn't get a chance to talk?
Yeah, hi. We are here. I'm doing good. I was editing your fiance earlier.
Yes.
That bitch is always late. Was I mean, I won't say late because there isn't an actual schedule for expecting the files, but you know, it's been a while.
It always is. That's the whole point. I mean, the title explains why they come out with episodes so infrequently and far between.
Right. But the 2 files showed up, so I've edited one of the 2.
They recorded both in the same day, so it's not like we didn't find them or something. They were just like a 2 for episode record.
It's very smart. I'm trying really hard to get Hot Nuance to do back-to-back recordings, like not in a day, but 2 days in a row. We've set that intention for like 2 months and haven't done it once. But it's always the intention. So I really admire Never and Chloe for doing it actually. But I mean, they do shorter recordings. So
yes, yeah.
They did 2 in one day. But yeah, that was fun. They're fun to listen to. And it was a real whiplashy episode, right? Because they're doing their usual silly thing. And then they had a whole segment where they just talked about what's happening in Gaza.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
And then went on to the next segment. It was just like, it was a really good segment.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? They were doing like all the right things, you know, with a lot of resources and talking about it and having feelings. And it was good and an excellent segment, but it just was such whiplash to what I'm used to editing and what the rest of the episode was.
And you know what? I think that might be, I don't know when they're going to find exactly what they want to do with this podcast, because I still feel like it's a little bit experimental every episode, right? Mm-hmm. And so that might be where they end up, because they're just really smart people. And I think they can do a lot with their knowledge, and I don't know. I like them. Obviously, I'm marrying one of them, right? Yeah.
Right.
By the way, I got a ring that I've started wearing.
Yeah, you mentioned.
Yeah, it was
it's lovely.
I don't know. So I know the tradition is not to wear a ring until after you get married, but I don't give a shit about tradition. And it's like, we've made the commitment. We're not gonna like back out of it now. So we're just both wearing the wedding ring. And I've tried to wear a ring before, and I've never found one that works. But she got me just a plain silver ring that's actually relatively thin. It's not like, some men's rings are pretty chunky. But I've really been enjoying wearing a ring for the first time in my life, which is weird to me.
It's a sign.
Yeah, it's a sign, because she pays attention to my needs and my wants, and actually is like, oh, let me figure out, like, what ring would work for you, because she, pays attention. And unlike other people I've dated in the past. But yeah, no, she clearly cares about me in a way that I find incredibly unique, and is why I love and I'm marrying her. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, she's fun and sweet, and I enjoy listening to her and her sister both talk shit and talk about real shitty shit in a really respectful and cogent way. So everyone should go check out That Bitch Is Always Late for Reddit, like nightmare family stories and actionable steps you can take on not feeling helpless about Gaza. You can get both at That Bitch Is Always Late.
Yeah. I feel like if you really love reality TV as like a secret passion of yours, you would really like That Bitch Is Always Late. Got just enough drama and seriousness in it.
Yeah, and I have no idea when that episode will drop, because Never's not the greatest about publishing the episodes once I upload them.
Yeah, they get uploaded, and Aradia's fantastic about editing them in real time. They get uploaded a day or two later, and then I tell Never, hey, okay, you gotta think of a title and hit publish. And she's like, yeah, I'll get to that. Weeks go by.
What in the ADHD expectation?
Well, because she doesn't want to title it without listening to it, which means she needs like an hour to like sit down and listen to it again to think of a title. And that's just a lot of time in her busy schedule.
I mean, I can flag titles as I'm going through, for sure. I could give her a list of potential titles.
That would be helpful.
That is a very easy thing for me to do. All right, I'll start flagging titles and give her pick one off of a list kind of things, because I think I know what makes a good non sequitur title, and they certainly say enough weird non sequitur things.
They certainly do. I've also been crocheting a lot, which I found to be very relaxing to be off my phone, and I'm almost done with this hat, which I'm very proud of. It's like,
oh, Oh, that's a nice shade of green.
It's like a green, and it's a super soft fabric, and I just need to stitch the top closed. Hold on, let me take my headphones off so I can put it on.
Model. Ah, yes. Oh my God. Gnome-like. The man is gnome-like, everyone. You're gnome-like. It's gnome-like. I love it.
I think it'll be very comfy.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And the top isn't done either, so.
Oh my God, it just looks cozy.
It is. It's so cozy and fuzzy. This is like a really fuzzy yarn that I'm very excited about it. The crocheting is, I'm amazed how much it keeps me from doom scrolling and keeps my anxiety down. It's been a real good tool for me over the last couple of weeks. Even at work, I'll go out into my car and like crochet in secret.
Hell yeah. I mean, it makes sense, right? People have been doing fiber crafts for like dozens of thousands of years at least. And we've been doom scrolling for a dozen years at most.
Right. and I was sitting next to Never last night, and she was in a coloring book, right? Doing coloring with colored pencils, and I was crocheting. And we were watching Lock and Key, which, by the way, I highly recommend Lock and Key. I think I've recommended it before, but if you're looking for something that's sort of Harry Potter-esque in its maturity level, right? Like most of the time it's light and funny, but every once in a while it gets dark. But it's also quite, I think, good character and writing and everything. And it's, one of those things where the people who have read the Lock and Key comics tell me it's terrible, it's trash, go read the comics. But I enjoy it as a TV show. So very similar to The Wheel of Time. I'm going to segue here into the Wheel of Time TV show by saying,
but it is grating nonetheless, for sure. Almost as grating as the picture that was just put in chat. I'm going to ban you. That's terrible.
Yeah, it's the image of It, which is very brief in the movie, but it's really disturbing, of It waving a child's arm. And at first glance, it looks like the clown is waving himself, but then you realize he's actually holding the base of the child's arm. And it's really... Whew. It's one of those images you can miss on first viewing in the movie, but when it's in GIF form, it's really, it's right there in the corner of my eye. Really disturbing.
More cute GIFs to cover it up. Run away.
Quick. All right, I'm gonna do a mod and delete the message.
That's one of those movies I've never actually seen. I mean, your name is The Mind Taker, so I'll consider my mind taken by that.
Can I admit that because I think I have a little dyslexia or whatever, I've looked over, and for the first time I thought that was Nentok the Minotaur. Don't know why, but for a very long time I read that as Nentok the Minotaur, and then I read it more closely and was like, oh, it's actually Mind Taker. I need to read words more carefully sometimes.
Yeah, no, I completely feel you. I've made so many of those mistakes throughout my life, and I will continue to.
It goes hand in hand with realizing the music lyrics you've been singing all along are completely inaccurate.
Yeah, and it goes in a different hand with understanding that this is why fractions are so difficult.
Oh, Nentok is not the correct way to say it? Of course it's not. I will never. Or do you mean when I read it out in Patreon? Because that's also probably when I said your name wrong. Yep, he confirmed. Patreon. Yep. Of course I don't know. I don't have a good solution for that because Patreon doesn't provide pronunciation guides, and I'm a really, really, really dumb American in that way, and that my tongue only moves in very American English pronunciation ways. I'm very, very bad at figuring out what names are actually pronounced. Anyway, can we move on? Let's talk about this.
Want me to tell you my dumb American moment from the other day?
Yes, please.
So I was in a group, very international group, and we were all introducing ourselves briefly, and I said that I'm from Oregon. And the person who had invited me to the group, who knows me and knows where I am and is also international, was like, very gently, but, for the sake of everyone else in the group, was like, that's in the US, right? Like, I just felt like such an asshole.
What do you mean you don't know all 50 states in the US?
Yeah, like, if any of them said the state or province or district or whatever they're in their country, I'd be like, I don't even know what country that's in, right? Like, they're mentioning these little European countries, and I'm like, I know roughly where in Europe that is. And I'm expecting them to just know where Oregon is. Like, I just felt like such an asshole American.
I mean, in fairness, the states of the United States are about the size and population of most of the countries in Europe.
True. It's true. It's true. But still,
Uh-huh.
we're all dumb Americans here.
Yes,
It's
yes.
a safe space.
No, we're not. There's very many international people listening to us. Are you kidding me?
I meant in the verbal conversation.
Oh, okay. You and I, yes.
Just between the two of us.
We're dumb Oregonian United States.
Oh my God,
and
right? Yeah, we're specifically dumb Oregonians. Which, for all of you who don't know, is on the westest part of the United States, aside from Hawaii and Alaska, which are not part of the contiguous continental 48 United State things.
We're north of California, right? We're at the top of California. And if you don't know, California takes like 2 days to drive from the southmost point to the northmost point. So, yeah, it's a big state. Oregon is not quite as big.
We're not quite as big, but yeah, we are left coast, best coast. That's us. Which means that we're on the Ring of Fire with the Pacific, and when things happen in Japan, like earthquakes, we get tsunami. You know, it's cool.
It's cool.
We're on the East Pacific.
The East Pacific, yeah. We're the far east.
Sometimes I'll look at like weather or geology stuff, and it'll talk about the East Pacific Basin, and I have to remember, oh, that's me. I'm used to thinking of myself in terms of west, but if it's a ocean-based phenomena, then I'm in the east. It's very strange.
Okay, this is the all right, I'm going on a tangent here. East, west, north, south, right? Like, super easy to tell north and south apart, right? Because they are points. There's a point at which you can be north, and everything around you is south, right? And that's an absolute point, right? Same thing in the south. There's a point where you can go to the South Pole and everything around you is north, right? Absolute point. East and west is entirely relative to where you are standing on the globe.
Yeah.
There's always an east of you, and there's always a west of you. And if you keep going east, at a certain point, you're coming west again. And so they're much harder for me to tell apart, because you can pick any arbitrary point on the globe and say, this is east and this is west. You can't do that with north and south. They're different.
Yeah.
They're different. And I don't like it when people are like, oh, the four pole, why do you have trouble with east and west? The north and south are the same thing. No, they're not. Okay, rant over.
As a geographer, I fully endorse this entire rant.
Have you heard about magma under Iceland?
Yeah, I haven't been following it nearly as much as I should. I cannot give you all the proper science lecture that you deserve right now. But yes, I am aware of the fact that there is a more severe than usual magma event happening in Iceland right now.
I also heard someone referencing Italy, but it sounded more like a crackpot, so I didn't want to bring it up.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. But yeah, I know that every science page I follow has mentioned Iceland at least once in the last 4 days, which means that it's a big deal because I follow a lot of science pages. So I can kind of tell the magnitude of things based on, how commonly it's getting mentioned. And Iceland rumbling and gurgling and maybe erupting is not uncommon, so I haven't really paid as much attention. But yeah, it's apparently quite a big deal. Basically, like a fault line kind of rifted in the middle of a town, and the town has been evacuated, and there's very good reason to believe that magma will come up and out of the fissure at some point in the next days to weeks. That's what I understand.
So you're saying, depending on the magnitude of the earthquake, there could be different magnitude.
Magnitudinal, bro. It's coming up a magma tube.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, basically what's happening is that Iceland is having a very normal event where it is the rifting of the two plates and the upwelling of a hot spot. This is what happens. The earth pulls apart and magma comes up through. This is standard Iceland. And I was looking at a map of where the earthquakes have all been happening. This is, I guess, on one of the southern tip parts of Iceland. So where people actually live, as opposed to most of Iceland where nobody lives. So yeah, this is normal, but also, catastrophic for the 800, I think, people who had to evacuate their town, more or less instantly and are just waiting for it to get run over by magma. It's It's rough. It's what you get living in Iceland, but it's still rough.
It really does seem that the problem with natural disasters isn't so much that there are natural disasters, it's that humans now live in every single nook and cranny that will support life. And so when there is a natural disaster, now instead of knocking over some trees and killing some wildlife, it threatens human habitation.
I mean, you could make the argument that it's not a disaster unless humans are getting harmed by it, you know? Like, if a disaster happens in the woods and there's no one around to get killed, is it a disaster, right? Like,
right.
It's sort of determined by how we feel about it. Oh, and I'm seeing maps getting posted in chat. Thank you. That's excellent. Yeah, you can just see that Iceland is rifted right through the middle with magma that's coming up. This is just another one of those events. It's like one of those maps of all the volcanoes going off in Oregon and how geologically it's like constant. It's like one every 1,000 years or less for the past like 20,000 years. Just like poppity poppity pop 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 pop, like it's popcorn over here. This is that for Iceland, except it's happening in a town where people live, so it's actually a big deal. Whereas often this happens, hundreds of kilometers, I should say, away from people, and nobody cares. Nobody, you'll register it on a seismogram, you'll see some weird sunsets, but oftentimes this happens far away from people, and it's an unremarkable event. It's just that this is ripping a town apart, so it's a big deal.
So you're saying it's not actually a sign of the apocalypse? Tarmangaiden.
I mean, for some Icelanders, there was, I will say, there was an eruption of, I'm forgetting the name. Oh, is it on this map? Yeah, Laki. It's on this map. There was an eruption of Laki in the 1700s that caused worldwide impacts that were very apocalyptic, and no one knew why at the time because Laki was so far away from people. But it vented really, really toxic fumes, really high and long into the atmosphere. And there ended up being like killer fogs in Europe and like crop failures, I think farther afield than Europe. Weird sunsets and sunrises like around the world, and massive fluoride poisoning in Iceland itself.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?